Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. It can be your adventures, and we are here again on another episode in my channel. And since I've been working here in the UK for already 5 years and I've already been granted my indefinite leave to remain here in the UK, so I'm gonna tell you the backstory of how I started to become a nurse here in the UK. But there's a twist on that. Before I became a nurse here in the UK, I was actually a nurse in Australia. How did it happen? All of that and more on this vlog. So guys, before we start with the vlog for today, which I'm very excited to tell you all about it, I'm encouraging everyone to please subscribe to my channel, It Can Be Your Adventures. Please click the subscribe button and join the bandwagon to get hold of my life here in the UK as well as my adventures all around the world. And you know, I'm really happy if you come into my channel, check out all the vlogs that I've made and also the travel videos that I've made on all of my travels and anything under the sun, and see you on my channel and help me on my race to 1,000 subscribers. We're almost there on that race, and I need your support and your help so that I can reach that dream. So how did this journey started? Actually, we have to go back 5 years ago. So 2013, first part of 2013, a good friend of mine who is also a nurse here already, and he's also a vlogger, so please check his channel out, Eric Von Fredeluces. And so he was the one actually who really motivated me to take the IELTS exam. So it all started with that. Actually, it wasn't my plan to really take this exam because I'm really afraid. I told myself that taking the board exam in the Philippines for nurses will be my last exam to take, and after that I told myself I'll just focus on becoming a nurse in the Philippines and probably flourishing my career into a higher positions and probably to become a specialist in the Philippines. And to my surprise, I was convinced and I was motivated by my good friend to take the IELTS, which eventually I did. But the idea there is really to like try it out. I was so pressured by my good friend. He told me there's an opportunity around the corner. There was an opportunity presented to me to go to Australia to become a nurse, and are you up for it? But the thing is, you need to take the IELTS. I was like, oh my god, should I take the opportunity to go to Australia? Should I go take IELTS? Do I have enough funds to support myself to take the exam? Unfortunately, the other 9 failed the exam and I was the only one who passed the exam. And it was very ironic because the other 9 was really eager for the opportunity to go to Australia to become a nurse and to enroll themselves for this transition program for international nurses. But I was the one who's skeptical, I was the one who's unsure, and I was the one who passed the exam. And so I eventually went to this agency who helped me go through the process of applying to Australia. And so I passed my documents to the AHPRA, so it's called Australian Health and Practitioner Agency. So that's the agency that regulates all the applications and documents related to health practitioners, including nurses, doctors, physiotherapists, or any healthcare professionals who wanted to have their documents qualify, have their professions in their own country to be qualified in Australia. And so I took the risk, so I gathered all my documents, passed it to AHPRA, and to my surprise, you know, it was really easy. It was smooth sailing because I passed my application. I lodged my application to AHPRA August, and then by around September 2013, I got the decision already that I'm already accepted to do program for international nurses in Australia, and I was so happy about that. And then I eventually went to this agency that supports or helps nurses to go to Australia in order for them to fulfill their dream to become nurses or to recognize to be nurses in Australia. And the catch there is
it's so expensive.
So for you guys who are planning to like really go to Australia and planning to work there as nurses and probably planning to go through the process of the bridging course for nurses, think twice, make sure you have enough funds, and don't go the same pathway as I did, because it took me a lot of lesson and a lot of challenges to be able to pay off the debts that I incurred when I went to Australia. But if you ask me if I have regrets, I have no regrets, because I was happy to where I am right now, and the very reason of why I'm right here, it's because of the opportunity that was presented for me to go to Australia. Around December, everything else are all finalized now, so I'm off and ready to go to Australia. It was actually a dream come true. I wasn't expecting everything, because at the first instance, it wasn't even my plan to go to Australia, but doors have opened for me, and I grabbed the opportunity to take this chance to go to Australia and become a registered nurse in there. So IRN program stands for Initial Registration of Registered Nurses Program. So this is or the bridging course, or this is a program that is granted to nurses who wanted to qualify as registered nurses in Australia, but they have to undergo certain hours in theory as well as clinical exposure before they can get their licenses to become nurses in Australia. And so I did that program. I went to Melbourne. I did study there in one of the schools, so I met a lot of good friends. I developed camaraderie with different nationalities who also pursuing their dream to becoming nurses in Australia. And so I was there for like 3 months. I enjoyed my time in Melbourne. First time in Australia. I was so excited. I was blown away by how wonderful Australia is as a country, and the people there were also nice. And I've got a really nice school as well with good reputation in Melbourne. And then my clinical placement, I flew from Melbourne going to New South Wales. I was in New Lambton Heights, which is like 2 hours drive to Sydney, Australia. So I was able to actually do a comparison or live in Melbourne as well as in Sydney, or somewhere in Sydney, New South Wales, while I was there in Australia. So I stayed there for like 4 or 5 months, until such time that I successfully finished my course, and then they granted me my license. So I finally got my license in Australia, and I was already a registered nurse in Australia come around April 2014. And so because I was in a student visa, my time in there is very limited. So I was actually like given only 2 months extension of my visa after I finished the program. And so during the time, I was actually pressured to find some jobs. So I was like really job hunting during the time, but to no luck, I didn't get any. I wasn't able to like secure, because my plan was to like really get hold of the job first before going home, and to make use of the time that I was there with the extension of 2 months with my visa, so that I can get a job. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to like take a job, and that was actually the downside that I didn't realize, that during that time when I applied for a bridging program in Australia, what comes next is the most challenging part, and finding a job there is so difficult. Much more so if you are not a permanent resident, and you need a sponsorship visa or the 457 visa. That one, it's very elusive and it's very difficult and challenging to get. So they actually like expected me to have a job thereafter after finishing the program, but unfortunately I wasn't able to like secure one. And so I went back to the Philippines, and then I actually spent so much time day and night applying for every hospital in all the territories in Australia, in just for me to find a job. Whatever job it is, I don't choose anymore. Whatever vacancy is open, I try to like pass all my applications, my CV in them. But unfortunately,
I wasn't able to get one
until probably almost the end of 2014. I secured probably like 3 interviews, 3 failed, and then the last one around December. So that's where the turning point was, because when I was on my lowest low, one of my good friends, wanted to give a shout out to Jazel Odango. She's a good friend of mine who's also a nurse here in the UK already. she was the one who encouraged me to try lodging my application or my documents to NMC, which is the Nursing Midwifery Council in the UK. So during the time in 2014, that was during the time when you also need to comply for documents for qualification if you are accepted to try overseas nurse program here in the UK. That was an old program before, because this time it's a new program already. If you wanted to become a nurse here in the UK, you will be into a new program wherein you need to take a computer-based exam and also the actual simulation tests or simulation exam. But before, it used to be only like 3 months during my time to comply for theory and also some clinical practice, and then they will grant you your license to become a nurse here in the UK. So I was very, very lucky during the time. It was really timely. During the time, I was really down, I was really low, so I actually reconsider her option. So I actually applied. So I was actually half-hearted because my heart belongs to Australia during the time. I was really hoping that I could go back as soon as possible ASAP in Australia, but unfortunately, it's not the case. So when I launched my application as well to the UK, after 1 month, they actually gave me all the packs, and then boom, I was like, oh my god, is this really also for me? So I was really confused during the time. Should I still stay with the opportunity in Australia, or should I grab the opportunity that is on hand in the UK, wherein I don't need to shell out money, because I just need to get an employer and sponsor me, and they will sponsor everything from fares to accommodation to everything, even your pocket money. While in Australia, I need to go back there. I need to get to pay for my accommodation, pay for my pocket money, pay for my flight, airfares and everything. So I was weighing my options. My mom said, okay, you choose which one of the two. Because during the time when I also applied for the UK, for the opportunity in the UK, that was also the time when I was called for an interview offshore in one of the nursing homes in Australia, in Ayr, Queensland. I got successfully the posts in Australia. Finally, after almost 1 year, I actually got the opportunity to go back to Australia on a sponsored visa 457, which I've been praying for, which is so elusive. They hired me offshore. I was like, oh my god, I was blown away, and that made the decision even more complicated. So during the time while I was staying in the Philippines, I already got decision on one of the on the nursing home that they wanted to sponsor me in Australia, in Ayr, Queensland. And also I got also an employer who hired me in the UK, in London, in one of the private hospitals here in London, where I actually successfully hired in an interview that was conducted in Manila, Philippines, in the capital. So I was actually torn which one to take, but eventually I have to decide which one will give my parents less burden, and which one will give me more opportunity to pay the debts more quickly. Rather than me going to Australia, we need to borrow more money, which will actually not good for me and for my parents in terms of paying the debts, because it might add burden to our family and also to the problems that we are facing already during the time. And so eventually I chose
UK.
And finally, January 2015, I was off to UK. I was processing everything, and February 6, 2015, I flew to the UK and fulfilled my dream to becoming a nurse here in the UK. And so I started a program during the time. We were actually the last batch for that program, wherein we're only required for 3 months of university exposure, lectures, and do some assessment paperworks, and voila, we can get our license to be part of the nursing workforce here in the UK. And so I got that opportunity. So I still renewed my license in Australia during the time while I was here in the UK. And I've got already my license in the Philippines, and then I got my license in Australia during the time, and I also got my license eventually in the UK. And if you ask me if I have regrets during the time, no. Because the thing is, I realized that after 5 years, eventually a lot of things has happened. I was able to like pay off my debts finally. And I realized after 5 years, when I became a permanent resident last February, I was granted my permanent residency here in the UK. I realized that everything happened for a reason. So it was never an accident that I went to Australia at the first instance. I took the IELTS because the thing is, if I didn't take the IELTS exam that I used for Australia, I would not have gone through the application for the opportunity in the UK, because the IELTS exam that I took for Australia, I also used for the UK. And so it was actually a blessing in disguise, because apart from I enjoyed my time here in the UK, I was able to be reunited with my only sister. So there's only the two of us, and my sister lives permanently in the Netherlands. And so we're always like see each other. We were living in one continent already, and apart from that, a lot of opportunities has opened for me to realize my childhood dreams, to reach places unimaginable, to develop friendships that I wasn't really expecting, and also to experience various experiences from all over the world, and to see places, and to actually it was actually an advantage for me and my fiance right now, Elle, who's also a flight attendant, because during her layovers we were able to like see each other here in London during the time, and it was actually everything was going on my favor during the time, and I didn't regret my decision of coming here in the UK rather than choosing Australia. And I also sometimes I miss my time in Australia, and I was sometimes like wondering, what if I go back to Australia and pursue my career as a nurse? Don't get me wrong, I'm still renewing my license in Australia. I'm still an active nurse in there, so I'm still renewing it in the last 5 years. Every year I've got like options as well. Who knows, things might change in the future, and I might reconsider again to go back to Australia and practice there as a nurse. But as of the moment, I'm enjoying my time here in the UK. I'm very happy with the hospital that I am with the colleagues that I am with, and I'm happy with all the experience that has happened to me in the last 5 years in here. And I'm really thankful and grateful that that opportunity has happened. Those challenging moments, those sleepless nights, those times when I was like crying, I was confused, I was ambivalent, I'm really thankful to all of those, because it made me to who I am today, and to where I am right now is a result of all those challenges that I was faced with in the last 6 years. I don't know if there are nurses out there or people out there who experience the same experience as I have, and I'm really excited to hear your stories. Put your story on the comments below, and I will be really happy to connect with you and to reply all your comments. All of these experiences, what I realize is it's not really the destination that matters, but the journey. So for all of those of you who are dreaming to go here in the UK or to pursue their dream as a nurse in Australia, go for it. Don't have any hesitations. Just go with the flow. Go where your heart is, and don't think about what other people will say about the opportunity you're gonna take. You chart your own actions. You are the master of your own life, and God will be there to guide you. Ask for wisdom, for discernment, which opportunity works for you, and God will actually pave way for you in the most amazing way unimaginable. And just like what happened to me, it was all unexpected. So to where I am right now is a result of God's providence, God's provision, and God's mercy and love. And so I was able to like enjoy the fruits of my labor. And through this story, I hope that I can give back to a lot of people out there who's watching this vlog, to reach for your dreams and never stop to achieve them.